course, once we log into the system, we get taken to the function point dashboard. And in this case, we're looking at a business intelligence dashboard that I set up a little bit earlier on. But if we have a look on the left-hand side, we have a bunch of different modules. So, of course, we've got our companies, our contacts, and notes. So these three modules form the CRM portion of the system. And what you'll notice under each of them, you'll have a find, there'll be a view, and an add option, and view brings up a list of recently viewed items. So in this case, we've got a list of recently viewed companies, and these companies would be comprised of prospects, vendors, suppliers, and of course here we can see some contacts and notes. So let's go ahead and do a company find. Now, whenever you're doing a search, you have the option to mix and match various fields and parameters. So we can go ahead and do a company find based on company type. Maybe we want to find all prospects. Maybe we want to look for prospects which, for example, are my own. So here we've got an account executive field. And you've got a few other options here to choose from as well. So custom fields, but we'll get into this shortly. Let's see what kind of results we get here. So again, we've just done a search for all prospects that belong to myself. Okay, so there is our company list, and we've got a bunch of great prospects going on here. We can see the company type, the company status, things like contact details, and so on. Now, if you wanted to manage this list and introduce other detail, maybe rearrange some of these columns, we've got a great button here. So manage columns, this feature allows you to introduce things like qualification levels, so maybe the account executive, and you can see a live preview here below, and this allows you to drag and drop. So let's say qualification to maybe the left-hand side here. Okay, and let's go ahead and choose, for example, industry type. That's always a popular one. So let's take industry type right there next to company type, and perhaps we want to see the geographic location of the company, so maybe city, country, and let's take away the fax number. It's kind of redundant these days. And we don't need this edit function as well. So let's see what this looks like. I'm going to just put the AE right at the start, save and close, and there we go. So in this instance, what we've done is we've generated a company list, and this is based on all the prospects in the system, and we can see different qualification levels, which we'll also get into, so we'll show you how to set up those. And of course, things like the city, country, and so on. Now you can generate a printout of this, so this will generate a PDF, or you can export this as a CSV. Okay, so just a really good example, very useful. And in this instance, let's go ahead and take a look at Canon. So this prospect belongs to this AE, Mark Wilson. The name kind of rings a bell. Wonder who that guy is. And we can see here the company, of course, is Canon, and we've got a basic info tab. In fact, we've got a series of tabs here, and the basic info tab is where all the information around this one client, or prospect in this case, is kept. So all the address information, contact details, we can see, for example, what the company type is. Let's go ahead and edit these. Okay, and this opens up all our fields for us. We can have a look at some of the drop-down options. So, for example, company type. We've got here prospect. Now you can add or change these company types as well. So you might have vendor, you might have opportunity. So it's really up to yourselves how you wish to structure your lists. And that's something that we'll take a look at in today's webinar as well. So qualification levels. These are extremely important. Of course, you can generate reports based on qualifications, and I will emphasize that these are just generic examples. So again, it really comes down to your own internal sales funnel terminology that you currently have employed. So you can go ahead and actually replace these values with your own. The source, another useful feature there, so that shows you how you actually heard about the client, and of course we can see here industry type and so on. Now further below we've got custom fields. A couple of examples. We've got a text field which we've named Twitter, and you can obviously put in text here, and we've got a date field option, okay, as well as drop-down options. Now you're not limited to just the 3 fields here, and of course you might decide to just have text fields, you might have a series of drop-down fields, and these fields are very useful because whenever you go ahead and conduct a company find, again just like we did earlier on, you're able to also choose certain custom fields and implement them in your report. Now next up we've got our contacts. So here we've got one contact, and we can see it's Lisa Croft, and of course contact details. And if we take a look at Lisa, it gives us some more details around Lisa, including her role, for example. So you might want to put in a title, and we can see things like birthdays and other information, which is very useful for that contact, including things like skills. So you might want to have some skills in there as well that you might want to take advantage of. But before we go on any further, Sophie, do we have any questions that have come up?
No, you know what? We've got a pretty quiet group here today, Daniel. Looking awesome so far. Thanks.
Cool. Thank you. So let's go ahead and take a look at the notes. So let's go back here one step. Of course, you can click on the breadcrumb trail, and we've got our notes tab. So this then shows us all the notes that we've left in the system. Really easy to add a note, and we do recommend that you use them to your maximum. So let's take a look at adding a note here for Canon. And we just spoke with Lisa today. Okay, remind to connect tomorrow regarding the T3i camera ad. Okay, so here we've got our contact, so we can go ahead and choose Lisa. And of course, if you have multiple contacts at Canon, what would happen is it would actually allow you to choose from a list of contacts. In this case, it automatically just populated the field here with Lisa. Now, note categories. We do have some default values here to choose from. Of course, we do recommend that you really hone in on your own internal terminology and implement that here as well. You might have a note category for minutes, meeting minutes. You might have a note for, let's say, opportunity, and so on. Now, if I wanted to share this note with other team members, I can also do that. So I can go ahead and pin this note and share it with, let's say, all of the account executives, maybe with Jane, and here we've also got Chris. So we can keep people in the loop. And if I wanted to make this into a follow-up note for myself, or rather a task, I can. So let's say I want to follow up on this tomorrow, and that is Thursday, the 24th. I can even choose a time, so set myself a bit of a reminder. Let's just say 10 a.m. Let's make that into a follow-up task and submit. Okay, so we've created a note, and we can see here the note title in the top left-hand corner, as well as a breadcrumb trail. So this shows us exactly where everything leads back to. So the note title spoke with Lisa, and of course it's linked to this contact, and that goes back to the company or the client page, in this case prospect, which is Canon. Now if we go back to our dashboards, what you'll see, and I'll just choose the AE dashboard that I created a little bit earlier on, under my pin notes there will be a note which I have added. And in that case, oops, let's go back one page. I've just noticed I didn't pin it to myself. Now, shortcuts, this is a good example. If you want to get back to the note that you actually just created, we can have a look at recently viewed notes, and you'll notice under my notes module, that's the top of the list. So that's the most recent one. Let's go ahead and edit that and pin. Okay, so I'm going to go pin that to myself. There we go. And this time around, you'll notice that it exists under my pin notes. There we go, you can see the contents of the note. You never even have to open up the note to see it. And it's also there as a task for me to follow up on. So you'll notice on the bottom of the list here, so spoke with Lisa, and it's not related to any particular job. And of course, I've got a reminder here to follow that up on Thursday, the 24th, and it's assigned to myself. And of course, once I've completed that, I can just wipe that off, and then it's taken off my list. So let's say tomorrow I have contacted Lisa, and I no longer need to worry about it. Now let's go back to the Canon page. So company Canon, again, top of my recently viewed list. Now this recently viewed list is specific to each individual FP user. So it's not an agency-wide thing. So the list that you see here will be different to the list the person next to you who is using function point. Again, it's specific to each individual user. So in this case, we're looking at Canon again. Let's take a look at notes. Okay, so we've got a couple of those notes. And of course, again, I encourage you to use your email categories, or rather your note categories. We've got an email category here, of course. Now, further along, I'd just like to jump to files. I want to mention that function point does allow you to upload an unlimited quantity of files to the cloud. So you can upload files of any type. Now, the limitation that we do have is 50 meg per file. And the reason why we have a 50 meg per file upload is obviously user experience decision. We want to make sure that all of our users who have different upload speeds get the best response when using function point. And of course, you can drag and drop your files right here. And then again, they can be up to 50 meg. You can give them a description. So let's just say Canon T3i camera, and I can go ahead and drag one from my desktop. Okay, let me just go here, my other screen. There we go, just pop that in there. Now you can use a combination of file uploads as well as links. And the links that we have in the system can point back to, let's say, your Dropbox. So let's take a look here. We can go ahead and add new links. Okay, so the source could be a number of different sources, your Google Drive, maybe Concept Share, if you're using Concept Share, which is, of course, a markup tool out there. And we can go ahead and point back to Dropbox and so on. Or, of course, you might have your own internal server. So very useful. And, of course, with the links, there is no limits. You might have a 1 gig or a 2 gig video file sitting on your Dropbox, and that you wish to link here, give it a bit of a description, and again, that would be available under your links section here. Sophie, any questions so far coming up?
You know what, Daniel, thanks for checking in. There was a really good question that came in that I did answer, but I thought it would still be good to show on screen. You were mentioning categories on the notes earlier, and then also with the companies earlier with the qualifications, and just how they can customize that for themselves. Are you going to be showing that for us today?
Yeah, definitely. Let's go ahead and take a look at that right now.
Awesome.
So if you are an administrator of your function point system, of course, you will have access to various admin sections in the system. And if we have a look here on the right, under admin, we can go down to list maintenance. So this is where you can manage your categories, your job types, estimate types, company types, etc. So to your left, you've got a bunch of different options to choose from, so a bunch of different list types. And if we have a look at, let's say, note types, so note categories in this case, we've got some here. So let's go ahead and add a couple of more. Meeting minutes, maybe let's say, do a follow-up there. Okay, I think that should be good. And of course, you can choose to order these alphabetically. Now, if there are some that you don't wish to use, you can also make them inactive. Okay, so we've added a couple of options here. And then let's take a look at company types. Let's do the same. So maybe add here opportunity, and maybe vendor. And again, let's order these alphabetically. Okay, so let's just quickly take a look at a few more options that we have. Okay, so estimate terms. We will get into creating a quick estimate as well, but I just want to point out that these are some default estimate terms that we have in this demo system, and of course in yours you could have multiple estimate terms that you wish to include as options, and of course estimate and job types. So these are extremely vital that you go ahead and adjust these so they are aligned with the types of jobs and estimates that you create in your agency, as well as project types. So again, I think we've got a pretty good selection here of what you would generally expect out there in the industry. Okay, any other questions relating to the list maintenance section coming from our attendees?
Hi, Daniel. No, that was great. I think we answered everything.
Excellent. Okay, so let's save what we've done. And of course, we can go back to our most recently viewed company, in this case, Prospect Canon. And if we take a look at the drop-down options, you'll notice we've got the new options that we've just added into the system. Same goes here for notes. So why don't we just go ahead and add another quick note and see what that looks like. Okay, let's just say we're going to choose meeting minutes for this particular note category. I'm going to not have to choose the contact in this case, but I do want to pin this to essentially everyone. And again, I can go ahead and drag and drop the image directly as a part of this note. Okay, and submit that. Excellent. Okay, so again, if we take a look at our dashboards, we'll notice under pin notes that we have a brand new note, and of course that note itself will contain the asset that we just uploaded. Excellent. So that's a bit on the company's page there. What I thought would be a good next step for us is to go ahead and actually create an estimate from here. So this will be an estimate, which is really an opportunity. We're not going to turn this into a job, but let's just see how that would actually flow. So directly from the company page for Canon, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add an estimate. Okay, and I'm going to call this one new logo design for T3I. And of course, we've got our estimate / job type. So it's essentially the same thing. And it's important to remember that your estimate essentially serves as the outline for your job. So it's really the skeletal structure of what this potential job will entail if the job gets the green light. So in this case, let's go ahead and choose logo and branding as the estimate type. Estimate contact, we can go ahead and link this with the contact from the company that we're working with, in this case Canon. So we've got Lisa Croft, no relation to Lara Croft, of course. And we can then go ahead and choose other options here. So it's important to always put in a delivery date, and of course this is your due date. So let's just say the client is aiming to have this completed potentially by April 29th. Now, category is really important to also choose because this relates to how you're going to bill this client. Is it going to be a retainer-based job? Is it going to be time and materials, or a fixed price job? And of course, you can also adjust these as well, but very crucial that you do choose one of these categories. And the same goes for work type. So work type is really a level higher up than the estimate or the actual job type. And of course you can adjust these don't forget in the list maintenance section in admin. So let's just go ahead and choose branding and design. So really good rule is to make sure that you fill this out diligently as much as you possibly can. Now, in terms of reporting effectively, pipeline reporting, you do have to choose the close probability percentage and a month to close. And this will give you the most effective reporting in function point around what your opportunities and what you have in the pipeline. So let's just say close probability percentage, we're 80% certain that this estimate's going to turn into an actual job. What month are we going to be closing this? So that's going to be April. And of course we can pop in some details here as well to describe what this potential job will entail. And then we have our service groups and our expense groups. So essentially these are your buckets where you can choose what your job is going to actually be made up of. So define the scope of work, and let's choose some research, some sketching, some design, maybe some client management there, and maybe some photography from our external expenses. Now bear in mind that you might have some different default markup percentages against your external expenses, as well as different rates. So again, this is a demo system. Your system would have been set up quite differently, I'd imagine. So let's go ahead and submit this. Okay, so we've created our brand new estimate, and again, we can see here the estimate number that's been generated for us, the name, and just below the breadcrumb trail where everything leads back to. So the estimate number, name, and of course this is a part of Canon. Now further below, we're looking at the services that we've just chosen, as well as the expense. And you might have some different definitions or descriptions which drop in just like these examples, or you might also pop in some further ones here as well. So you can make adjustments. Okay. Now, to your right, if you do have information at this stage pertaining to the hours against each of these services, how long things are going to take, you can, of course, put them in. Otherwise, you might just pop in a value just for the time being to really just lock in exactly how much this potential job is going to actually cost. So let's just say $15,000. And we can always put in here an estimation for photography as well. So let's just say $2,000 for photography, maybe camera hire plus lighting. Okay, and we've got our estimate total. So let's go ahead and save this. Okay, so the estimate's been saved, and let's see what a printout of this may look like. So maybe just a standard estimate. Now the printouts can be, of course, adjusted, and that's another topic altogether. But this is a typical generic example of what an estimate in FP may look like. Now, if you've actually added the client or the contact in the system, in this case we have, so we've actually added Lisa under Canon, you can send this estimate digitally to the client, so they might receive, or they will receive rather, an email from within function point, and then you can choose perhaps templates that you may have set up. So of course you can have different email templates. We can say we've got an example here, so this is some default generic text, and we can send this off as a PDF. And then, of course, choose, well, what kind of estimate type are we going to be sending this this prospect or client, and shoot that off. So that's been sent. Excellent. Now, if we take a look here under basic info, it's important to use the statuses. So we highly recommend that you change these statuses as the estimate or the opportunity progresses. So in this case, we have submitted the actual estimate. So we can go ahead and actually just leave that as submitted. Now once it's approved, of course, you would then change it to approved, and you would then turn that into a job. And the way we do that is we simply hit add job. But before we go ahead and do that, what I thought would be a good next step for us to do is do an estimate find and do a search for all estimates which have been submitted, as well as the ones that are in review. and take a look at those. But Sophia, any questions before we do that?
Hi, Daniel. Thanks for checking in. You know what? Lots of really good questions are coming in, but I think I've handled them so far. Thanks.
Awesome. Great work. So let's go ahead and do an estimate find. So again, just like the company's search, under estimates, you can go ahead and do an estimate find and then mix and match various fields and parameters. Excellent. So let's take a look at all estimates which are currently in review, submitted. So you can choose multiple fields. And let's leave this wide open, so not just choose specific AE. And then further below, we also have things like additional fields, industry type. So this is, again, really, really useful with what you can pull up in the system. Okay, so here is our estimate list. And let's go ahead and just clear the sorting. So of course you can sort these columns, whether it's by estimate number, or things like date, close probability, percentage, and so on. So let's just do that here. Okay, there is our latest estimate. So the Canon estimate, which is for the new logo design, and that's for the Canon T3i. We can see who the account executive is. In this case, it's Mark Wilson. The estimate type falls under logo and branding, so it's essentially your job type. And we've got things like close probability percentage. So there's an 80% chance that this is going to turn into an actual live job. And we've got the estimate date, but we don't have the close, or the delivery date rather, but we do have the month to close. So of course, just like the company's page, when you go ahead and do a find, you can manage the columns here as well. So let's do some adjustments. Alrighty, so delivery date, let's go ahead and choose that. And what else do we have here to choose from? Quite a few different options, as you can see. We can choose work type, and maybe description, and below, of course, we've got our live preview. So I'm going to take up the edit option, and let's start off with the estimate number, company name. That's looking good. Take up the project. In fact, why don't we just do that by AE first, and move that delivery date right here next to the estimate date, month to close. Perfect. Okay, so that's looking good. I'm pretty happy with that. And save and close. And we've got our estimate list, which has been fine-tuned and looks something like this now. I will highlight that any of the columns that you manage within any of these modules are user-specific. So this will not affect other users in the team whenever they go ahead and generate a list of any kind. So just like the company list that we generated earlier on, we can then go ahead and do a printout of this. Let's see what this looks like. You can, of course, play around with the margins as well. Or you can export this as a CSV and then, of course, open that up into Excel. So you do have quite a few different options. But let's take a look at this estimate list by client reports. This is a very popular report as well, which very useful. So let's take a look at this. And I do encourage all of you to play around with the reports that you're able to generate based on the searches that you do under each of these modules, particularly the estimates, the jobs, and company modules. So we're looking at the estimate list, and this is then broken down by client. So if we scroll down here, we've got Canon, so we've got two estimates, and there is the estimate that we created a little bit earlier on, and that's the new logo design for T3i. And we can see the details, the overall value, and so on. Okay, so that's the estimate list by client report. Excellent. So let's just say that we have been given approval to turn this into a job. So I'm going to go to our recently viewed estimate. I can do it here from the estimates module, or I can directly click on the link right here. So let's go to that estimate and turn that into a job. So we've got this button, Add Job, and we have now created a job based on that estimate. And of course, you'll see nothing changes. The estimate number remains the same, as well as the name, and of course that leads back to Canon. Now it's important to note that we do have this summary tab for the job that you've just opened, and the summary tab shows you the health of the job. So we can see here the estimated value, $17,000, as well as the actuals and so on. So a lot of zeros because it is a fresh job, and these values will get populated as people start tracking time, if a schedule gets attached, tasks get allocated, etc. Now, of course, you can change the status of this job because this job may, for example, be a preliminary job, so we can go ahead and change that as well. And just like a lot of the other lists within Function Point and options, these job statuses can also be adjusted. Excellent. Any questions, Sophie, that are coming up?
You know what? I actually did have a pretty good question for you, Daniel. I've got Andre who is asking about being able to track notes to estimates. Now, I know you're not able to do that, but I was thinking if you changed the estimate into a job first and keeping it in a different status. Is that anything you're going to touch on today?
If you change the estimate into a job first, and then what you can, of course, do is you can add notes, which will then be linked to that specific job. So each job that you create in the system will have a section for its own notes, just like this here. We can see it's grayed out, as well as files that you may upload directly to that specific job. So I hope that answers that question, but we can do a quick example here. So I'm going to go ahead and add a note. And of course, this note is now going to belong to this job specifically. And let's just say new concept. And of course, we're dealing with Lisa. And if we like, we can go ahead and upload an asset here as well. And in this occasion, we're not going to pin it, we're just going to leave it as is. There we go. So we've created a new note. We can see that this new note titled New Concept belongs to this job. So if we have a look here at the job, we've got our brand new note, and the note belongs to the job itself specifically. Now, this is also visible directly from the company page. So if we click further back on the breadcrumb trail and take a look at the company, which we've just done, let's take a look at notes. You'll notice that some of these notes link to a specific job, and you can see that with this latest note that we've just created. It's a new concept created by this individual, linked to this contact, optionally, of course. We haven't categorized those, so it's just defaulted to email, but we can see that this has actually been linked to the new job that we've just created, as well as that there is a file there, so we can click on that, and we've got access to the file that we've just uploaded. And again, don't forget to look at the breadcrumb trail, because this shows you exactly where you are in the system, and you can click on any of these steps along the breadcrumb trail and you'll be taken to that specific page. Just like we're looking at the job page here. Excellent. Okay, the last couple of things that I'd really like to show before we sort of jump into any other questions and other items would be the reports that we have. And again, this really depends on the level of access that you've been given in the system, your role. So if we have a look at CRM and sales, we've got a bunch of different reports here to choose from. So new business by month and close probability percentage is an awesome report. So let's take a look at this example here. Okay, so I want to find all opportunities, let's say for the next 3 months. So the approval status of these estimates, let's just say submitted in review, and prospects. Let's take a look at Leo, Mark Wilson, and myself. Okay, and qualification levels here would be prospect and maybe follow up. And again, you've got complete control over a lot of these statuses, types, qualification levels. So don't forget, the list maintenance section in Function Point is gold. Okay, so let's take a look at opening up this Excel file. Okay. Alrighty, so I'm just waiting for that to open up. Okay, Excel is not wanting to work for me on that occasion. So let's just see if this file will actually do that. So my apologies there, everyone. Okay. Okay, so I do have a bit of a conflict here with my Excel. I actually did do a software update just the other day with the release of the new El Capitan update, and for some reason there's a bit of a conflict there with Excel not responding the way it should. But what I will do at the end of today's webinar is I will actually shoot over a bunch of reports that we do have. We've got a bunch of different sample reports which are based on opportunities, pipeline reporting, and you can take a look at those a little bit closer. But of course, before we do wrap up today's webinar, I will ask for any last questions and any other parts of the CRM that you'd like to see before we wrap up today's call. So, Sophie, anything that's coming up?
No, I think the questions are starting to peter off. Thanks for checking in.
Awesome. Excellent. So I'll give everyone another couple of minutes to ask any questions that you may have, and we can then wrap up today's call. And again, I'll put together an email that I'll shoot over to all of you containing a bunch of different sample reports touching up on CRM sales as well as pipeline reporting. Okay, so it is 12:45 p.m. Pacific time. Sophie, any last questions before we wrap up today's call?
No, I think we're good over here. Thank you for your presentation today, Daniel.
Awesome. Thank you for being my co-pilot, and I'd like to thank everyone for joining today's presentation. Like I said, please stay tuned. I will be shooting an email to all of you that will contain some sample reports. which will be in PDF format as well as Excel format. So I do encourage you to check those out, as well as some links on best practices around pipeline and sales management in the CRM of FP. On that note, thank you everyone, and Sophia, thanks for your co-hosting, and speak to everyone soon. Have a great day.